So we're going to react to Stranger Things Season 1, Episode 1. So let's get into it. November 6, 1983, Hopkins, Indiana. I love how they already have like the story background and everything. One thing I really noticed is the lighting that they have for these scenes and how everything is like very old school. So they really are trying to make it look like the 80s, which I really like. Oh, what happened? What is he running from? This man looks terrified for his life. Oh, to the original boys. They all look so young, and like the whole series, it's weird that parts of the game are inside the real world. It's crazy how well they did it. Of course, you gotta have your high school bullies. I love how they didn't make them like over the top. Like in a lot of shows and movies, they make the bullies like very unrealistic. At least for this, it could happen. I'm not 100% sure, but I'm pretty sure the one that plays Barb is actually in Riverdale, I think. The chemistry that these two have at the beginning of the show is really great, considering the fact that like you don't get to see that throughout the entire series. There's a lot of like separation, but it just makes me reappreciate rewatching it. Oh, there's Hopper. I love how unserious Hopper is at the beginning of the show. He's very much like nonchalant, so it gives you that idea of like it's a very small town, so nothing really bad happens. And then you got the overly worried mother, obviously Will's mom, who's obviously reacting, which we know she's not overreacting later, but at the time you would have guessed that she was just crazy. And here's where we get the first shot of them going into the upside down, or like the portal. The one thing that wasn't really brought up even at the very beginning of the show, or even like towards the end, is like how long they've actually been messing around with this stuff, because as we know in the later seasons, Papa was obviously had Henry, which is Vecna, and that was like years before. So like how long have they really had this access? Millie Bobby Brown played this kind of distraught young girl who had no idea kind of like what she was going through and like the trauma she committed to. I like how you could tell how she was with people by the way like she reacted and like the facial expressions, and that's just really good acting, especially from a kid, to showcase the kind of trauma that one faces when they're not socialized at a very young age. And it's just hard to get that across on screen. So I thought for it to be so young, to be able to do it so well, it's great. One thing I really want to point out is that they have the chart behind them. And a lot of times in a lot of school systems in the 80s, you very much had to know these charts. And so they were put around at a lot of schools, making everything 80s themed, even like the intercom in the background. Just little touches like that and like the different outfits. This kind of really brings it all together. I was actually reading that the actual equipment that is used in this scene actually did work, which is really crazy considering how old it was. And the fact that they went through there to get that type of technology to make it look real and to be able to use it is a really testament to how well they wanted to make this show. And you gotta realize that at the time, nobody knew it was gonna be as big as it is now. The one thing that I kind of wanted to point out here in this scene is that it's a flashback, and one of the things I appreciate is like a lot to do with the actors, like the way they do their makeup and facial features. Because as you could tell here, she was a lot less stressed, and he looked a lot happier, and she looked a lot more lighter, And then when you come back to the present time, you can see that worry and concern in her face and just in her body language. It's just the little things. I love how he's trying to like reason with her and like trying to get her to come to him, and not so much trying to force it out of her. Because when someone has kind of went through a traumatic experience, it's really hard for them to kind of open up to that level. But it's also really hard for you to help someone in that situation because, it's hard for you to understand. One thing I always found interesting, specifically about this family dynamic, is how like the mom was very involved, trying to get them to do the right thing, is very involved, and then you have the father who's just absolutely oblivious, like he just is not paying any attention, doesn't want any confrontation, literally just being there. One thing I noticed is like from the very beginning is how well they casted the characters, and how like each family dynamic is a little bit different, but in their friendships between the group is obviously very different, and you could tell obviously that they really cared for Will, which was nice to see. One thing I found interesting about this scene at the very beginning was how the guy thought that he was helping when he called, and of course Papa shows up and is willing to really do anything he could to get her back in his possession. Not so much wanting to harm her, which showed that obviously she had value to him, but she was willing to do anything possible and didn't really care who they hurt. One thing that got me on this first season, especially with Steve, is how much they made him supposed to be like a jock, but you could still kind of tell that he had some good to him, just maybe hasn't fully developed yet. I mean, you could also tell just how Nancy is like a people pleaser and how that dynamic really plays out. They really make you feel for Jonathan at the beginning because you could tell that he just wants to help his mom and to find his little brother, but he also has personal issues, but he can't really deal with his own issues because he's having to deal with this. And that's how it was a lot for people back then. It's like, the men had to be the provider, that they had to take care of things, and that was very common back then. This scene, when they first run into Elle, the one thing I noticed instantly was the fact that she didn't immediately run away, which is strange because obviously the moment she seen somebody else, she made a run for it. So you could tell that there was kind of like this feeling that she felt like she could trust him, which I thought was really cool. So that's the end of episode 1. So it is exactly how I remembered it. There is a few details that I obviously forgot from watching all the previous seasons. But it gives you a more understanding, I think, when you kind of rewatch it and see what you missed. Just appreciation for the characters that developed over the show. My next video will be probably going to do like 2 episodes for each one. So I think the next one will be probably episode 3 and 4. Comment down below what you think. What was your favorite part? And if there's anything else you want to react to.